All right, we've got a great interview for you guys tonight on the Young Turks, TYT interviews. Tawanda Jones and Abdul Salaam. They're both out of Baltimore, and they're both fighting for justice in their own ways. And I would argue that in a lot of ways they're American heroes for standing up against the injustice that they see in the system, in this case in Baltimore. So Tawanda is got a brother who was killed by the Baltimore police. And what she's done over the last 3 years is incredible. Now, I want to get to Tawanda in a second, and I want to welcome both of you here. But I actually want to start with Abdul. Abdul Salaam got pulled over by the cops for a very grave violation, to be honest. I mean, we had a seatbelt issue and a possible cell phone issue. So obviously, they beat him. And unfortunately, that's how it works oftentimes in Baltimore, and that's what we're going to talk about. But he then beat the system. He sued them and he won. So he was able to prove that he was right in court. So Abdul, tell us what happened on that day when you got pulled over about 3 years ago.
So on this day, July 1st, 2016, I was going home, pretty routine day. Started off with me and my son. He was 3 years old at the time. And we stopped to get some groceries for a family cookout that we do on the 4th of July every year in New Jersey. We had stopped to get something to eat. So on the way home, I saw a group of youth, and I work with children, I work with youth, and I often intervene. And this was around the Trayvon Martin situation. So when I saw this particular group of youth, I also saw a marked police car coming in the opposite direction. So I just told the youth briefly, I said, you guys be careful and, be safe. And kept moving, kept driving. And in Baltimore, we have alleys. So I went down my alley. And when I got about 3/4 of the way to my home, I lived about halfway in the block, I could see this squad car darting up the alley, doing an extreme speed for an alleyway. And I saw the lights flashing, but no sirens. I kind of looked up like, an alarm. Let me get out the way so they can, proceed by, do whatever they need to do. So right before I got in my driveway, they came on the PA system and said to stop my vehicle. So being I had my 3-year-old son, I'm right by my home. I say, well, let me pull in. They could talk to me, give me a warning ticket, whatever. My son would be comfortable recognizing the home while we're parked, and I go about my business. Well, and it was anything but a routine type of stop. So when I parked my car in my driveway, they immediately jumped out, 3 officers, 2 white, 1 black, a black Hispanic officer, Jorge Ruiz. They immediately came in an aggressive manner. And at least one had, reached for his gun. So the 2 Caucasian officers came to my door, immediately opened my door and started to take me out and slam me. But before they could actually get me out of the vehicle, it was a struggle to take me out of the vehicle because I had my seatbelt on. So finally, when I came out of my seatbelt, they immediately slamming me onto the ground by my shirt about 3 times. And the one officer finally got me to like the alleyway, and he handcuffed me. Still didn't tell me what was going on the whole time. I'm sorry. If I back up a little bit, I had my hands out the window when I noticed that they were coming in my van in an aggressive manner. So they never told me what was going on, why they stopped me, any of this. So I'm asking at this time, my neighbors start to approach. The first neighbor to approach was an older lady, about 70 years old, who had heard the police when they were on the intercom saying to pull over. So she immediately came from her dinner table to respond. The police used intimidation factors with her, and my neighbors and witnesses started to accumulate because she was fussing at the police for abusing me. She had seen the abuse take place from the very beginning. So this officer then handcuffs me and immediately slams me another 3 times on my shoulder, on my elbows, as I was not able to break my fall because I'm handcuffed at this time. We're talking in front of 10 to 15 witnesses at this time. Then they sit me while the one officer's doing this to me. The other two officers are going through my van where my 3-year-old son is still strapped in his car seat, and they're violating my vehicle and throwing around these groceries and a tirade as though they're looking for drugs or guns with my 3-year-old still strapped in his car seat. So I'm sitting on the ground, Indian style, and the officer tells me to roll over on my stomach. So, of course, because I'm handcuffed, one, I'm injured, two, and I'm startled, three, I wasn't able to immediately move. And he picked me up by my feet. Officer David Nicholas Chapman picked me up by my feet. And the one black Hispanic officer then came over. Crowd had grown to about 25 individuals at this time. Video recording, asking for forgiveness and for them to stop. Forgiveness for what? We don't even know, right? But when the black officer came over, I asked him, upside down, in handcuffs, dangling by my feet, if he was going to allow this officer to continue this type of abuse and terrorist attack on me. He didn't respond. The officer dropped me on my head. My fall was broken by my head and my shoulders. And the black officer then proceeded to drop on my head and neck area. If you're familiar with the Freddie Gray story, as a lot of people are, and they say that he had a knee to the back of his head. That's the same thing that happened here. And also in the Tyrone West situation, which we're going to get into. Mm-hmm. So I'm now pinned down on the concrete with a 250-pound 6'3" man on my head, another one that shackled my feet at this time and put me in a hog-tied position, which means he on my stomach. He did put me on my stomach like he requested, right? Pulled my feet to the back to the middle of my back and pinned my feet and my wrist together with his knee. I stayed in this position for about 5 minutes. While I'm in this position, I'm pleading with my neighbors and begging them to call my mother, who at the time had just become a judge in New Jersey, which I just told them a judge, hoping they would hear that and take some precaution to what they were doing and spare me my life. I also asked for my neighbors to call my wife and for them to call police to police the police. I was then put in a paddy wagon, taken to the hospital to add insult to injury, literally at the hospital, as I prayed and, just asked for God's strength to make it through this as best as possible. They antagonized me, made fun of me in the hospital. Internal Affairs did respond and take pictures. And I referenced that to say that they did not thoroughly investigate. After they were called by my neighbors, by my family, a report was done, and they responded to the hospital. They did not respond properly, and that's egregious. That's an egregious attack on myself and the community when they didn't respond properly, and we had neighbors on the spot complaining and right. Filming and things of this sort.
So,
yes, sir.
So you wound up going to court and you won what, $70,000?
Yes. We went through a week trial by jury, and we were awarded a monetary sum of $70,000. But it's never about that the money. We are looking for more accountability with these officers,
right?
Because they have other egregious attacks, specifically on, we referenced Tyrone West 2 weeks later.
Right, and I hear that there was some of the same officers involved. And so for the people at home, the reason I brought that up is because a jury found that your story was accurate and true, and that the cops did do that. So, and that's why you got the money. In fact, between 2011 and 2014 in Baltimore, they had to pay out $5.7 million in cases that involve police abuse. So this is not an isolated incident. It happens all the time. So one more thing about that, Abdul, it's for folks who didn't grow up where you grew up, mm-hmm. Your story sounds so foreign to them that they have trouble believing it, right? Because, for example, I grew up in the suburbs, right?
Right.
And And if you heard the cops come over had the sirens, or you heard them saying something on their PA system or whatever, people would come out to see, oh no, is there a bad guy in the neighborhood, right?
Right.
But in your neighborhood, it seems like they come out like, oh no, the cops are here. Let me go protect the person that they're probably beating.
Well, let me say this. In my case, one of the reasons that I made such a commitment to follow up and follow through is because my 3-year-old son was with me. Okay. Tyrone West. And I also work in a community where I have young men come to me and depend on me as a elder statesman, because these type of attacks happen all of the time. All right. So I'm counseling young men where they're going through these type of incidents and they don't have the resources to fight these type of incidents. So I say that to say, you talked about the normality of these type of events in our community. On that particular day, had these other factors not happened, had my son not been with me, had Tyrone West incident not happened, I may have just accept, and they not incarcerated me, because they often don't even incarcerate you after they abuse you and terrorize you like this, right? They just say, go on about your way, because they know the system is going to protect them. They know that most individuals don't have the resources to hold them accountable. So yes, it does fall on deaf ears for the most of the nation and the world. These, in the last few years, we're getting a glimpse into the reality of what was particularly Black men, and it has been also in recent years been incorporated our Black women, and we're seeing our Black children also being terrorized in the same way in our schools, and in my case, a 3-year-old strapped in his car seat.
So I want to get to wine in a second, but I want to go to Tawanda now. Tawanda, Abdul mentioned a couple of times your brother, Tyrone West, who was killed by the cops at a very similar time. So can you tell us what happened to Tyrone? Why was he pulled over, and what happened, Tawanda?
Yeah, so the same reason that Mr. Salaam was pulled over, he was stereotyped. That's why my brother was pulled over. I had just let him, he just left work that day. He picked me up from work. By the way, I'm a school teacher, picked me up from work, just had Officer Friendly in my classroom. I teach all summer round. I'll never forget July 18, 2013. Started off as a beautiful day, ended up as a nightmare. So he had immediately just left me, and within a half an hour, my brother was brutally murdered. And the first two killer cops, Nicholas Davis Chapman Ruiz, the ones who pulled him over for no reason in his driveway in that same neighborhood 2 blocks over, they were the ones who pulled my Mercedes-Benz over, and for no reason pulled my brother out by his dreadlocks, came to the car with their guns drawn, calling him the N-word, telling him to get out. He's like, had his hands out. Eyewitnesses saw this brutal attack. We're talking about 7:00 p.m. on a summer day. So witnesses are coming out. They're, seeing what's going on. And like you said, we live in a culture now here in Baltimore that it used to be a time where, like you said, somebody get pulled over, then people in the community are like, well, maybe that's a bad guy. But in this case, they're so scared. They're coming out with their cell phones, the video, because they know that these attacks are real. So with that being said, Nicholas David Chapman and Ruiz started commencing a brutal beating on my brother, pepper spraying him, tasing him, pulled him out by his dreadlocks, kicking him, threw him on top of his head, and then they handcuffed him, and then was kicking him and everything. And the difference between Abdul Salaam was that, thank God that the neighbors knew him, and his baby was in that car, because who knows what would have happened. But with my brother case, they didn't know my brother, but they knew, and I give it up for that community, because those were heroes in my book. They came out, they tried to save my brother's life. They came out with their video cameras, and to this day, we have no video footage. We're talking, me and my family been fighting for justice now for 1,025 days, 146 weeks. That's how we met Abdul Salaam. We started something immediately when my brother was brutally murdered. by 11 and 15 Baltimore City police officers and 1 Morgan State officer who sat on my brother back until he was no longer breathing, moving, or screaming for help. My brother dying words was, Trayvon Martin, help me. Because the verdict of Trayvon Martin had just came in that Saturday, and my brother got killed that Thursday. And witnesses said when he was screaming for help, begging and pleading for his life, he started screaming Trayvon Martin's name, and no one stopped. And the witnesses got threatened. Nobody took the witnesses for their word. Nobody took the win. To this day, like, we're fighting like I don't know where the investigators had it not been for us. They even lied and said that it took them 146 days just to tell us a lie and say that my brother died of cardiac arrhythmia and dehydration when there's a water bottle, mind you, that me and him was drinking. He had his water bottle. He had drunk 2 waters that day. He bought 2. He drank 1 with me at dinner before he got a phone call needing a ride from a lady needing a ride. And he asked could he borrow my vehicle, me not knowing that was the last time I was going to ever see my brother. And I said yes. And the reason what makes me so sad because I thought my car was going to be a safe haven for him because I didn't want nothing bad to happen to my brother. And the same car that I thought that was going to protect him got him stereotyped, targeted, and brutally murdered. And I have to live with that. I have to live with that. And they lied. They hid my brother's body for 5 days. We couldn't even go and see him. The funeral home couldn't even go get him. And then they lied to my family 154 days later and said that my brother died of dehydration and a heart attack, basically.
Right.
And we just found out with my family fighting, and we hired somebody, my attorneys hired somebody else to find out that my brother died of positional asphyxiation, which we knew to be true because we heard a leak from the medical examiner's office before they came out with the foolishness. And we're still fighting. To this day, I'm going to get my brother's body exhumed. Exhumed. You know how that makes me feel like I disturb his grave? But they will not lie. Just like we know all those injuries that Freddie Gray, happened to him, with all the injuries that he occurred. Anthony Anderson was killed by the same exact unit a year before in Baltimore City, tossed on his head like a basketball. It was ruled a homicide, and nothing happened. And that's why we got the outgoing state's attorney, Greg Bernstein, out of office, and we backed Marilyn Mosby. We got her in office. And we got her in office, and thank God we did, because we wouldn't even be seeing no transparency or anything in Freddie Gray case. But it didn't stop at Freddie Gray. It didn't start at Freddie Gray, and it truly doesn't end in Freddie Gray. We're going to see what she's going to do for my brother Tyrone West and all the victims of police brutality.
So and just to add in something that is a must that you have to understand that we try to communicate between us in the West Coalition is that the correlation between Abdul, or most importantly, Abdul Salaam and Tyrone West, is that this is a microcosm of the lack of accountability. Like, we did what we were supposed to do. All right. We're talking about 2 weeks. All right. Specific. We're talking about 16 days precisely. 16 days. We're talking about literally 4 blocks walking distance. All right. That these terrorists, all right, did this act. We don't know what else happened in between. We don't know what other acts, but we at least know that these 2 acts happened almost 2 weeks, 4 blocks from each other. All right. Internal Affairs was called, all right, by more than one party on both occasions. Okay. And the lack of accountability to hold these cops off of the street. No one notified us of this. Not even the lawyers told us this. This is stuff that we put together. We put this information together. We notified elected officials. We notified police commissioners, state's attorneys. We did that information. Nobody's helping us with that. So when we talk about, this is not normal. So when I'm referencing that to say that a lot of lives are being destroyed when you don't have these type of resources or these type of, and we're working with minimum resources. Okay, and minimum people. So just imagine, when you have a 19-year-old, an 18-year-old, and this happens, it falls on deaf ears.
Right. So, I want the audience to understand that in the case of Abdul, he won a court case, so he got to prove his case in court to some degree. And then in the case of Tyrone, I have here in my notes that he's pulled over for a U-turn. So, because people make excuses and say, oh, they got a dangerous job and it's a dangerous neighborhood. But, if your excuse for pulling somebody over and viciously beating them was a U-turn, well, you begin to get a sense that maybe that they were just doing that for another reason, right? And again, I tried on this show to get people to understand each other's perspectives, and I've done a lot of U-turns, and probably a good number of them were not quite right, you know.
Right.
And I never got pulled over and beaten, you know, halfway to death or all the way in Tyrone's case. So and now, you know, Tawanda's won awards for from community organizations, from Johns Hopkins, met with Attorney General Loretta Lynch. That's amazing, right? And part of the reason is you, Tawanda, are doing something that I find so admirable. Every week, you call it West Wednesdays, you go to a different part of Baltimore and do a protest.
Yes.
Man, that's real perseverance, right? And to show that kind of willpower to stand up for your brother when he's not here anymore, that's amazing. So both questions of what drives you on that, and then I also want to see what you have gotten from that in terms of, has it begun to work, has it gotten attention, and has it started to lead towards change?
Okay, can I jump in? So basically what drives me is the love that I have for my brother. And not only the love that I have for my brother, the love that I have for my community, for everybody around the world. I love people. I love doing the right thing. So the love, it drives me. And then the things that I've seen that change is basically, even though right now it doesn't seem like we're holding people accountable, but a win for him, even though it's not, it's never about the income. It's only about the outcome. Because none of them, all the money in the world can't bring my brother back. Those couple of pennies can't do nothing to what happened, that torture that was placed upon him about people that's supposed to serve and protect. So that's out the window. So what I'm trying to say is, so the little small victories of him winning and the big victory of us getting Greg Bernstein out of office, when he looked my family in the face and he gave all the officers full immunity and he told my family, don't get comfortable in our chairs. He wasn't prosecuting nobody. And my response was, you better not get comfortable in your chair because you're out of the election time is coming up. And I promise you, every West Wednesday, we're going to get you out of office. And that's exactly what we did. So stuff like that. And they connected with all these families. Like, I've been around the world meeting different families. I wouldn't wish nobody into this family, but touching base with them and going to Annapolis, changes laws. I was a part of the Christopher Brown law that holds people accountable, things of that nature. That's what makes me feel good, is holding people accountable and letting them know, yeah, even though y'all walking the beat, I'm walking the beat right with y'all.
So, yeah, I don't know that I could have done it. I don't know a lot of other people that could go out every single week and do a protest. And some days a lot of people would join you, and some days not many, from what I hear. And but you still showed up every Wednesday and had that fight in you. So that's what I mean by an American hero. I mean, that's what a true American does, to make sure that they correct their government, because it is their government. So now, along those lines, has it gotten better at all in Baltimore with Marilyn Mosby coming in, and have you begun to see any changes in the Baltimore PD?
To be honest, I don't think it got better, because with her taking that stance and prosecuting those officers, I'm still seeing police misconduct every day. Like, I don't even like to watch the news. The only time I turn it on literally is to see what the weather's going to be about. But obviously I'll get caught up into something, and you always hear about police misconduct. A child gets shot. A father and his son just got gunned down 56 times. Like, that's ridiculous to me. Like, it's overkill, and there's always an excuse. And now we have a new commissioner, and I'm going to put him out there. You know, our commissioner now, to me, is horrible. You know, he goes on the news instead of him just grieving for families that lose people, whatever. I don't care what happens. He needs to go and say, well, you know what, I'm sorry this took place. No, he goes out there like he's talking about Iraq. He's like, yeah, my officers act within reason. We don't count the bullets. We shoot until the threat's eliminated. Like, really? So it's disgusting. So I don't think nothing changed. And then I look about Keith Davis Jr. This man got gunned down by Baltimore City police officers, and right now he's still sitting in jail. That's ridiculous to me.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, I think that, again, a lot of people watching might, since they didn't live through what you guys lived through, they might understand, as I explain it rationally to folks, that, hey, look, the prosecutors work with those cops every day, And so they might be biased in favor of the cops and they're not going to prosecute. Now that's wrong because they're supposed to represent you, right? They're supposed to look out for you. Now, but somebody can understand why they would do that even if it's wrong. What I think a lot of people have trouble understanding is why did the cops do it in the first place, right? So why beat somebody over a wrong U-turn or, make up excuses about their seatbelts or whatever it might be, right? So that's what a lot of people can't understand if they didn't live in a place like Baltimore where you guys lived. So why do you think the cops do it?
Because they had this officer's law, Bill of Rights that protects them. Like literally, they get 10 days before they even get to go and seek an attorney, and then another 30 days before their interview. But if we go and brutally murder somebody, we're locked up on the spot, arrested, all that thing. So it's things like that that cover them. To me, it places them above the law. And I'm not talking about good police officers, because I do know that we do have good police officers that exist. To me, they wear their uniform with integrity. I'm talking about killer cops, criminals on payroll. And we have a lot of them floating around, not only in Baltimore, but all around the world. And it's sickening.
Yeah, Abdul, go ahead. I mean, I'm curious, especially as a black man in Baltimore, especially
it's pattern in practice.
Yeah.
So, when I read the article that described what happened to Tyrone, it was exactly the same report of what happened to me. You understand? When I read the report of what happened to Freddie Gray, it was the same report of what happened to me. Understand, it's all about falling 6 inches to the left or 6 inches to the right, whether you live or you don't. It's all about how many witnesses are there to depend on how far they may go or what day of the week it may be, right? So this is pattern and practice. This is not just happenstance where they putting the knee on certain areas and hog tying individuals. This is what this is what they're trained to do. This is a culture, and it's a subculture. Understand that when I was in the back of the paddy wagon, all right, the officer listened to me. I told him what happened. He told me I was preaching to the choir. Okay? Mm-hmm. He went and told another officer what I just told him. That officer says, "Are you fucking kidding me? Again?" Understand that. Understand that there was another gentleman in the back of the paddy wagon that described the officers to a T and even had a name for them because I described to him what happened to me. He knew who did it. Understand, this is a reality. So whether people want to believe it or not, we don't care. We don't have time to care because it's a reality. This happens every day.
So that's interesting, though. Can I just
say real fast that we're talking about a corrupt system that feeds off of different systems. And like I said, until my brother was brutally murdered, and being so I pay taxes, I serve on a jury, all that good stuff. And I'm thinking that the American system really works. You vote, you go, hey, but at the end of the day, you have the media that can actually make a liar look innocent and make an innocent person look guilty. And then you have people to feed it, and we feed into this foolishness. And I call it the television. You hear all these lies, but we need to be conscious consumers on what we take in. And then at the end of the day, when I think about police officers and things like that, we come from a slave state where my forefathers were slaves. These were slave catchers. And to me, that's exactly what's happening. It's not just happening to everybody. This is happening. And to me, I always say a poor man's reality is police brutality. Mm-hmm. And it's sad.
So, Abdul, you said something interesting in that story about the paddy wagon. You said that the other cops said, "Oh, again with these guys," and those are the two officers that were also involved in Tyrone West's death a couple of weeks near yours, right? And so,
absolutely, Nicholas David Chapman, and Jorge Bernardes Ruiz.
Okay, but so I know that there was no criminal charges against them in Tyrone West's case. Now you won a civil trial. Was there any criminal charges against them or no?
No criminal charges.
Okay.
No, right. It's never criminal charges.
Right.
It's never criminal charges, but we're not just gonna let it die, with no noise being made around criminal charges, as we are still trying to pursue criminal charges.
Right. So
particularly in correlation with the Tyrone West murder.
So let me see if I understand this though. So if the other cops knew that these two guys were causing trouble and beating people up, etc., so not all the cops were doing it, obviously, as you guys said, right?
Right.
And so and you talked about the cops and all the rights that they have. Is it that it empowers some cops to do whatever they want because they know they can get away with it? That it's not that all the cops are taught go out and beat all the black guys in Baltimore, but the ones that have that proclivity, the ones that want to do that, are empowered because they know they're never going to face any consequences. Do I have that right?
And then and not only that, it's that blue cold wall of silence. So even if I'm out there and I'm a police officer and I see somebody beating the crap out of somebody, you're guilty as I don't know what because you're standing there letting it go by and you don't say anything. Like really, I'm thinking about 11 to 15 men and women. And we talk about different races in my brother case. They beat the life out of my brother. And it's sad to say that I wish he would have got gunned down. And that's horrible. Like you got to pick a tragedy over a tragedy. That's ridiculous. But he suffered at the hands of people that's supposed to serve him. He was beat to death. Do you know how long that takes? Like, really, did they expect for my family to believe that he died of a heart attack and dehydration? And then now the new news, they expect for my family to stop right there and say, oh, well, yeah, throw them a little bit of truth and they'll keep it moving. Not with this family. Wrong man, you got the right family. I want to know how many broke bones, ribs, and everything. I want to know it all. My brother Tyrone West will have the last word. His body will tell us everything if they didn't already turn it up. We'll turn it up now while I'm speaking.
So then let me ask you guys in conclusion here. You're going out there every Wednesday, you're still fighting that fight, and 3 years later, so do you have hope? I mean, if Marilyn Mosby, who came in, you guys got elected, and then she charged the officers in the Freddie Gray case and looked like some things were turning around, but earlier you said you think the cops are still doing the same things. Do you have hope that at some point it's going to change? And if it does, what do you think makes it change?
I have hope that it's going to change because hope is the only thing. Hope is like putting gas in a car. That I fill myself with hope every single day. You know, trusting and believing in God that God will have the final word and the final say so. And to me, holding people accountable, starting that process, and that's why at the end of the day, a lot of people don't agree with her. But at the end of the day, I always give her kudos for at least starting the process because she could have easily turned her back, walked away, and said, oh, well, sorry about Freddie Gray. Oh, well, I'm not going to do anything. And she, did the right thing. But like I said, she needs to do the right thing, not just in Freddie Gray case, but in any type of police brutality case where you can prove it. We want thorough investigation. We don't want no foolishness. They claimed in my brother's case, it was 3 investigations. All of them was foolishness. All of them regurgitated what the killer cop said and everything. Nothing about what the witnesses said, no autopsy pictures, nothing. Flat out lies. Where's the videos? Where's the footage? Where's the pictures? I want all of it.
From the biggest change and or hope that I see is not, I don't even call it hope. I say we have us, and all we need is us, right?
That's right.
And the importance of that is that I think I see a different Baltimore, one of the Energizer bunnies right here that I call, and that is within the grassroots community. We have a strong grassroots community in Baltimore that is very focused, goal focused, oriented on getting wins, whether that's with policy, holding individuals accountable, doing investigative work, and just doing work within the community on the front line to connect the dots of what's going on politically and what the truth is. So that's if you want to call that hope, I think that's the hope that we have. We have individuals working to create change and to create a better Baltimore.
That's like we have Baltimore Black, who's actively every day doing stuff. Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle, Buck Coalition, JC with Circles of Voices. We have so much going on that all they got to do is just allow us to help run and change our communities. The work is right here. If they want real change, come to the people, come to the grassroots organizations and connect with us if they want real change.
So guys, let me leave it on that note. If people do want real change and they want to help, whether they're in Baltimore or otherwise, how can they help you guys in specific?
Well, specifically, they can help us with like just connecting with us, coming out to West Wednesday. They can Facebook Justice for Tyrone West, and they can find out like where our little protest is going to be. And literally, when it's time to go to Annapolis to change those laws that I was telling you about, we just left Annapolis. We need all of y'all to jump on the bus with us and go out there and be in their face, eye to eye, and change the thing. So just constantly connected with all the grassroots will be a big blessing. And I just want to thank the Baltimore George who knew nothing about my brother was saying. We couldn't even tell them what happened to my brother, and they made the right decision in Abdul Salaam case without even knowing that a man was killed by these same exact two. So just connecting with us.
Absolutely. Connecting with the organizations. Tawanda said, Baltimore Block, our organization, we work with youth, Keys Development, at keysdev.com. We always can use as many volunteers to get in the schools, work with youth to make a difference. And like Tawanda said also, something that we focus on is the General Legislation Assembly, yes, where we have different reforms that we are focused on, goal-oriented. And we had a few wins this session, which we are very proud of, but not all the way satisfied with, as they need amendments still to be, as such as the Civilian Review Board, to really be substantial.
All right, Tawanda Jones and Abdul Salaam, thank you so much, guys. We really, really appreciate hearing your story, and good luck in your efforts. And it really is an amazing story of how you guys have persevered and fought on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cenk.